Hello, world. So, five of my seven signals are now flashing. This is not really a good thing. There's a lot to get through in today's video, so I'm going to go straight to the point right now. Quick recap from last time. We had a full moon cycle on October 6th, which was the peak, where we pumped in the market, including Bitcoin. Bitcoin finally retested the 200 daily moving average, which is what I was waiting for. The question now is there more downside to come? This is where I'm a little fuzzy, because if we go to the charts, if you see on the Bitcoin chart right here, it hasn't fully, it came really close. And this is where I'm struggling. I don't know if this counts as a retest or not, because depending on if this is a retest, we may still have more downside to go. And to see a really nice retest, I'll show you an example. If we look at the Mara chart, when Mara retested the 200, see how it actually went through and pierced the 200 line before it bounced and went back up. Now for Bitcoin, it came really close. Some exchanges are saying this went lower, I guess depending on the chart you're looking at. But what I will say right now is to proceed with caution, because we may have more downside to go. It's very rare to see one big giant candle go down and not try to retest the bottom again. That happens very rarely. So I have a feeling there might be more downside to come next week. Okay. Now, that being said, there's something I wanted to revisit again. This is a slide that I had in my video from September the 9th, titled Fed Pivot and Market Top. I didn't change anything in this slide. You could go back and watch the video. This is the exact same slide that I took from that video to pull out the receipts to show that I saw this dip coming. There's been a lot of YouTube videos since Friday, and it's been funny watching all these YouTube videos of everybody saying nobody would have been able to predict what was coming. One of the things that has put me at peace in trying to predict what might happen in the markets is basing my analysis on history, patterns, and cycles. When you understand history, patterns, and cycles, the narrative doesn't matter. The narrative will be used by the news to make people feel better about themselves or their decisions. Everyone's saying Trump tweeted, that's why the market went down. To me, it doesn't matter what the narrative was. I didn't know what the narrative was going to be, but I saw something was coming. That's because I'm using history, patterns, and cycles. Okay. Now, to pull out the receipts of what I explained last time, way back in September 9th, this was over a month ago, I had called this out. I said in the 2008 Great Financial Crisis, the Fed pivoted September 18th, 2007. Okay. This year, the Fed pivoted September 17th, 2025. That's literally a day apart from the 2025 date to the 2007 date. Almost the exact same day we had the Fed pivots. Now, I said at the time, when the Fed pivoted in 2007, the market topped out 23 days after, which was October 11th. Okay, 23 days after, that's when the market topped out. So if you take that 23 days number and add it to when the Fed pivoted, that's how I came up with the date. And to show you proof, and this is why, I could tell if people are watching my videos or not, because I keep saying watch my previous videos because I had explained all of this stuff. So if I go back to my scenario sheet, okay, here, see all these scenarios that I had played out, labeling what could potentially happen based on history, okay? And I said in 2025, the Fed pivoted September 17th. If I add 23 days to September 17th, see what date that is? Exactly 10/10, which was Friday when we had the market correction. This is not magic, folks. I wish I was a magician or a psychic. Nope. I just use history to determine if the same thing will play out that we had last time. And you could see I literally played out 7 or 6 other scenarios. I came up with a total of 7 scenarios of potentially what could happen. The fact that my very first scenario played out was even a surprise to me. In addition to that, I had explained in scenario 3, if I take the typical Bitcoin cycle using an average of 530 days, I said Bitcoin could top out October 8th. Okay. Or if I take 534 days, it could top out October 12th. So because I had these 3 dates in these 3 different scenarios closely aligned together, that's how I came up with this date range where I said, watch out for October 8th to October 12th. And that is exactly what had happened. So that being said, the fact that that played out, let's go back to our base case scenario, okay? We have scenario 1, October 8th to the 12th, which has already played out. The question now is that the ultimate top, or was this just a local top? Okay. I said, personally, I feel like scenario 2 is most likely to play out, but I am not stupid enough to think that scenario 1 couldn't have been the final top. Okay. And to be quite frank with you, the only reason why I put scenario 2 as a scenario is because I was trying to use the maximum number of days that Bitcoin has ever topped out from a halving cycle as a factor, as well as the fact that this year, 2025, when the Fed pivoted, the Fed was not as aggressive. Back in 2007, the Fed cut interest rates by 50 basis points. This year, they only cut it by 25. So I was trying to take that into account, saying, okay, if the Fed is not as aggressive, maybe it will take us longer for the market to top out. So because of that, I added this scenario 2. If I have to be honest with you all, if the Fed had cut the interest rate by the exact same number, scenario 1 is really where I was expecting Bitcoin to top out. So if scenario 1 happens to be the one that plays out and ultimately wins, I still would not be surprised because that was my ultimate base case from the beginning. I added these other scenarios as somebody who's being open-minded and taking different factors into account. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on this, but do not be surprised if we've already topped out on Bitcoin, like I said, because a lot of things do point to scenario 1. Next, regarding the signals, so we've had 2 signals on top of our base case, which have already flashed, which was the extreme euphoria, which we've been having in the market, the ETF announcement, which I explained in other videos. Now, there are 2 additional signals that I'm about to reveal, which are currently flashing right now. So I'm about to show you what these signals are. So signal number 3 is the Coinbase app in the top 10 app store. This is a signal that usually shows up at the end of the Bitcoin cycle. Now, listen carefully. I would actually argue Coinbase is not a good indicator anymore. And I'll explain why. A lot of things that people are missing, especially all these YouTubers, is the fact that back in the day, Coinbase was the only, one of the few, if not the only trusted crypto exchange where a majority of people were allowed to trade crypto. I would argue Robinhood is actually more popular than Coinbase in today's world. Okay. And because of that, I would argue Robinhood is actually a better indicator to use instead of Coinbase. And to that fact, the Robinhood app is already top 10. So I went into my Apple iOS app store. I pulled up both. I took a screenshot. As you can see, Robinhood is already in the top 10. So to me, this is already another indicator saying we've either topped out or we're about to top out. We're getting very close. Coinbase is still number 13. But you have to remember, times have changed now. And this is what all these YouTubers and everyone else is no longer taking into account. The fact that there's a lot more apps now where people are allowed to trade crypto. So that user base is being distributed across all these different platforms. It's not only Coinbase anymore. So it might take a lot more users and transactions to put Coinbase in the top 10 compared to back then years ago when there was no competition. So that being said, Robinhood being in the top 10 app store now is a signal that's flashing. This means we're getting close to the end of the crypto cycle. If not, we've already topped out. Now, the next signal number 6, is Bitcoin dominance funny bounce. This is a term I came up with. I don't know what to call it because it's something I can only explain when I show you in the chart. It's a behavior that Bitcoin dominance does during the end of the crypto bull run. So now I'll show you what I mean by the Bitcoin dominance funny bounce. So let's take a look at the charts. Let's go to Bitcoin dominance. Okay. If we go to our previous top dates, in cycle 3, okay, we topped out November 10, 2021. And in cycle 2, we topped out December 17th, 2017. So let's take a look at those two cycles really quick. So if I go to November 2021, so November 10, 2021, okay? If I go to the Bitcoin dominance chart, again, this is not Bitcoin chart, this is Bitcoin dominance. They're two different things. If you want to know what Bitcoin dominance is, you could go Google it. So if I go to the Bitcoin dominance chart, Bitcoin dominance close to the end of the Bitcoin cycle. So this is when Bitcoin topped out on this date, November 10th, right? See what Bitcoin dominance does. At the close to the end of the Bitcoin cycle, it goes above the 200, comes back down, hits his head again, and that's when it tops out. And the crypto cycle is over. Okay. So this was in the 2021 cycle when we ended. Now, let's do the same thing. Go to the 2017 cycle. 2017, December 17th. Look at that again. Bitcoin dominance did the exact same thing. Briefly went above the 200 daily moving average, came back down, retested its head, bumped its head, cycle over. That's where we ended. Game over. Bull market done. All right. Now let's come back to 2025. So today's date, October. What is happening right now? Bitcoin dominance, same thing. It's about to go over the 200 and come back down again and probably bang its head. But here's something that's strange that I don't like about Bitcoin dominance this time around. Bitcoin dominance if you remember in the other charts, previous cycles had a full candle above the 200. This time around, it only provided a wick and came back down. This behavior does not look good to me because it didn't do this in the previous 2 cycles. So I don't know what this means. If this is telling us the cycle is already over and Bitcoin dominance is not going to be able to retest to 200, because this wick is a really, really large wick that we've never seen before. So this is a new challenge that I have to figure out now, because I don't know what this means, to be quite honest. But the point remains the same. At the end of the cycle, Bitcoin dominance always breaks through the 200 briefly and then comes back down, which is when the cycle ends. Okay. So that being said, these are the signals that are now flashing. We only have 2 more signals to go. And if these 2 signals start flashing, I'd say the cycle is over, or we're at least getting close to the cycle being over. Thanks for listening. See you next time.